Well, welcome to Live this morning. I'm excited to have Don and Suzanne Manning join me today. Their ministry is Crazy Cool Family, and it helps families love Jesus and each other. The mission is to show parents how to connect the relationship in their family to Jesus and to each other. The book is Crazy Cool Family, which we'll talk about a little bit, and rethink the way that you do family. Guys, it's so good to see you, and thank you for joining today. So good to connect with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yes, we love you, Dr. Kim. We love what you're doing. We love Awesome Marriage. I have got so many of your resources, and we're just so grateful that we get to be a part of your ministry a little bit and encourage your people, your families with Crazy Cool Family and what we've done over the years.
Oh, that's so nice, Suzanne. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And it's always nice to hear when people get something out of the stuff. We have a team that works so hard on stuff, and they do such a good job. So thank you for those kind words. That's really nice. So let's kind of talk about your family and how did you come to this idea of Crazy Cool Family?
Well, so one thing is we started having a lot of kids, and we had to figure out how to do things. I mean, I think it was always secretly her idea to have a large family. She kind of let me in on it as we started moving through the marriage life.
Let's have babies. Yeah. Let's have more babies.
So we did. And so really, I just remember being early in our parenting years. And, I always do my parenting in decades. We're starting our fourth decade of parenting.
Yeah.
And, in the first decade, it was a blur. I mean, literally. And then, towards the end of the first decade, maybe beginning of the second, going, hey, as a dad, as a leader of my home, there's a lot I don't know. I wish someone would write me a manual. I wish someone would write me a guidebook. And, but that's eventually. And so eventually, as we got to the end of the second decade, we started to have teenage girls, and we started to figure some things out. And God gave us some revelation about relationship and about the culture of our home and how we create an atmosphere, kind of a greenhouse, if you will, for relationships to flourish. We started to say, I felt like God said, hey, write it down, write down what you've learned. You've got 7 kids. We've now done 30 years of parenting. What if we wrote that guidebook? And what if we wrote that plan? And so we just tried to be obedient to what God wanted to reveal. And also just, I think that family, other than salvation, when you have an amazing family, it's the greatest gift God could ever give you. What if we gave it back to others?
That's what I was going to say is we looked at 30 or 20 years in, that's when we kind of started building the ministry after 20 years, and realized that there were families imploding all around us, and ours was not. And so we thought, God, that is a gift from God. He has given us revelation and insight into family, into relationships, into the culture, into all these things. And so for us, believing that family is, God's designed to get his word out and glorify him and all the things kingdom. And so for us, we just said, okay, God's given us something amazing. We want to give it to anybody and everybody that will listen to us.
Right. That's so good. That's so good. Fourth decade of raising children. That's amazing. But, I tell couples when in premarital, a lot of times we'll talk about how many kids they want to have and how far apart each one. And they usually say something like, well, we're going to have 3 or 4 kids, or some of them do, and 3 years apart. But every time you have another child, that adds that many years onto your parenting. And with 7 kids, you guys have to have
we were in diapers for 15 years.
Now,
I think I was just going to say, for us, all of our friends are empty nesters, and we still have a good 3-4 more years before we see that empty nest at all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I bet it was interesting to having them all, and as each one kind of moved on, it probably changed the dynamic of the family a little bit because one wasn't there all the time, and now you just have one left at home, and so he's probably hoping he'll get spoiled and all the
for sure. Well, and that's a funny dynamic too, because it feels like just as soon as you've got them all grown up and independent and loving the Lord, then they go off. And I just remember thinking, okay, God, wait a minute. When they were hard, I had to do everything. But now that they're easy and fun and I want to be around them, they're going out into the world. I rethink this plan.
See, but you guys will have the joy of probably a bunch of grandkids, and that, I think, is where God redeems all that because
Yeah.
they
We
are
just had our fourth
oh, so you do? You're
last
already
week,
there?
a couple weeks ago, and then but the tsunami is coming. Is that's what I keep saying? Is that because well, four of the girls are married, and another one, our oldest boy, probably pretty soon. So in the next few years, next decade or so, they definitely will start to have more and more grandkids
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
You'll have a ton of Christmas stockings on your mantle.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we don't want to think about that right now. It feels a
Not
little
right now.
overwhelming.
Well, let's talk a little bit about crazy cool family, the four crazy cool pillars of encourage, safe, discipline, and unity. Unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah. So, when we look at culture, first of all, just what is culture? What we found is that most families, most Christian families in particular, focus on the outside. They're so concerned about the culture and what's hitting their kids, and they want to control the outside. And so what we found is that one of the big things we learned kind of in that second decade as our kids got older, especially our girls, is that if we focus on the inside, if we focus on their hearts and the heartbeat of our home, then that will make us more successful. If we can help equip them on the inside while they're in our house, when we send them outside, they're ready to take on the world. And so we shifted our focus from the outside and the inside, and then we started to say, what in terms of culture, those pillars, what values are important? What do we make important in our home? Because, Dr. Kim, you know that you've only got so much time to focus on so many things. And so we started to try to discern what the important things, the important values to put into our home. And that became over time. We didn't realize it when we were in that second decade of parenting, but over time we started to realize, hey, there's four things that are super important. And you want to just start going into what they are?
Yeah. And so one of the things that bubbled to the top that was a must was encouragement, to encourage our kids daily. It literally rearranged our relationship with our kids and with each other.
Absolutely.
Because we went from being critical to being encouraging. We saw the things that they were doing right, and we talked about those things, and we didn't make a big deal out of the things that they maybe weren't doing right.
Well, and what we found every parent I know believes, for the most part, that they are too hard on their kids, and they are always on them, and they always have to. And I was that same parent for sure. It's one of the biggest things I learned in parenting is that with their best interest in mind, I kept telling them what they were doing wrong.
Yeah. Because, we're thinking we need to mold them and shape them, and we don't want them to mess up, and we can teach them and show them the way, and mistakes are, to take them from mistakes.
I'm a super achiever too. So if they got it wrong once, I'll tell them again. If they got it wrong the next time, I'd tell them again. Because, in the interest of, I wanted them to be obedient. I wanted them to get it right. I wanted them to do their best. I wanted them to do all those things. And I found that the very thing that I was doing to help them was actually damaging their self-esteem and their confidence in themselves, and actually pushing them away from me.
Right. Well, just a perfect example is that when Don was their basketball coach or their baseball coach, and when the kids rode home with the coach, then Don would guide and direct them and show them, okay, you could have done this better and this, and what happened there and all that stuff. And when they rode home with me, because I was pretty clueless to what was going on, I was like, great game, you did so good. And they're like, Mom, I didn't score. I know, but you were out there and you look great in your uniform. And so we noticed they started wanting to ride home with me.
Your car's full and Don's driving by himself.
For sure. But it's really one of the biggest lessons I learned. In Hebrews 3:13 says, encourage one another daily, as long as it's called today, so that your heart will not be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. And literally what Suzanne tells our parents a lot is that when you encourage somebody, you literally put courage into them. You insert courage into their hearts. And isn't that what we want for our kids?
Right.
We want to be, and we ask parents all the time, do you want to be an encouraging parent, an inspiring parent, or a critical, harsh parent? And so, as parents move towards that, it totally changed my relationship, particularly with my daughters, because it inspired them to be confident kids.
And so I was just going to say, so what does encouragement look like for our kids? I think that we live in a society where we don't encourage much. And so it's almost like it's a foreign language. And so what exactly does that mean? I'm so proud of you. You did such a good job. I love it when you, whatever, clean your room, put your dish in the sink. Look, that grade you made in school was so good. Or I was talking to a friend's parents and they were telling me how amazing you are. And the coach said you're a hard worker. I see you being a hard worker. To get your spouse, thanks for going to work and working so hard all day. Thank you for providing me with a car that works, that's not going to get a flat tire. Thank you. Anytime you can put a thank you in there, that always is encouraging.
Absolutely.
So appreciation. So that's the first.
It's so good. And I think you're right. And especially in the culture we live in now, it's so easy to be critical. And I think, like you were saying, Don, you weren't coming from a bad position in your heart. You were trying to help your kids, but then you realized this encouragement makes a difference. I remember, gosh, it's probably been 25 years ago, but I was listening to Josh McDowell. I don't know if you know who he was. He was with Campus Crusade. And he was kind of their speaker for a while. And one of the things that I heard him say was that he had a group of parents that were very critical of their kids. And so they did an experiment. They asked them to give their children one thing of praise or thanks every day for 3 months. And then they got them back together. All the parents were astounded, the change. And not only did it change the child, but it changed the parents. It helped them look at their child different because they were having to be conscious of those things that they could praise their children about every day. And they're there. We just kind of focus on the dirty clothes and gosh, you left your dish out again, or it's under your bed and it's got mold on it. We focus on all those kind of things, and which we have to, but that encouragement is so important. I love that. I think that's a huge piece.
Well, and the flip side of that is also the next pillar is called the safe haven. And really what that focuses on is learning to listen to your child. And for so many, Suzanne was a counselor at a Christian school for many years, and girls would come to her. She was a girls counselor, and they would come to her and say, I've got this problem. And her first question would be what?
Always, have you talked to your parents? Have you talked to your mom about this? We always want to turn the kids' hearts to the parents. And
that girl would say, never would I talk to my parent about that. Why? Because I'm going to get a lecture. I'm always doing something wrong. They never listen to me. And yet every parent, if you talk to the mom in that situation, the mom would say, you know what? I can't get my kid to listen to me.
She won't talk to me. She won't share with me what's going on.
Yeah. And so, but because, and he in James, it says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Okay. Just take those two phrases, quick to listen, slow to speak. And whether you're a Christian or not, encouragement and listening are super skills they are the superpowers of parenting, because when you become an inspiring parent and a listening parent rather than a critical, overbearing, talk all the time parent. I mean, if we can contrast those two, it will. And hey, it works in marriage too, by the way. It works to be a listener to your spouse.
Well, and we learned that the hard way because we would try to fix each other. Like how he would come to me with his, issues or problems, and I would say, well, you should do this, or what about this? Have you thought about this? And he's like,
have we solved that yet? I don't know. I'm not sure that we've solved it. But also, even with our kids, I feel like that. Yeah, I'm always trying to. I love to talk. I love to teach. Again, here's what we find, Dr. Kim, is that a lot of parents are working hard at some of the wrong things. They're great parents. They are amazing parents. And if all we want to do with our ministry is tweak their efforts and say, hey, let's think about backing off the criticism a little bit. Let's think about being more encouraging, more inspiring, and a better listener. And Suzanne always says, even with the little kids, we've got a 3-year-old grandson who talks constantly. But you know what? She says, hey, if you'll listen to them when they're 5, they'll talk to you when they're 15.
Yeah.
And 5 is any, little kid. If you listen to a little kid, then
Because what happens?
Because then the child sees that you're safe and believes that you're safe. And the way I say it is, it's because it's all they know. If you've listened to them all along the way, then when they're a teenager, that's just what mom does. That's just what dad does. They do. I'm a safe person for them to come to.
And be careful what you're going to hear, because you're going.
Be careful with how you react to what you're going to hear.
And it's because when they tell you things, you've got, you can't, because what happens is the reason the teenager or the 5-year-old or 7-year-old or 10-year-old doesn't talk, as soon as they do it, they're going to be told why everything's wrong and why they shouldn't do it that way. And instead, we even talk about it in our pillar of, is talking about inquisitive questions versus accusatory questions. How do you, hey, well, tell me more about that.
Mm-hmm.
And practically help me understand, or why do you like it? Why do you do that? Not so much, why do you do that?
Yeah. As the kid gets older, where do you think God is in this? Things like questions like that invoke a response to them because wouldn't it be great if we can get them to come to their own conclusions? They usually know what's right. If we can get them, and if we can get them to come to there, then they own it at that point, rather than mom and dad tell them what to do.
Absolutely.
That leads perfect into the next pillar. So the next pillar is relational discipline. And so, obviously, anytime you have small children, discipline is an element that has to be in there. Sure. We tell groups of parents all the time, please discipline your children. We don't want to be in a room with you. If your child's being a brat or whatever, we want you to discipline your children. But there is a way to discipline them where you're going after their heart and you're going after that relationship and you're building it using the things that your kids do, their behaviors, as opportunities to connect with them instead of alienate yourself from them.
I was just talking with Madeline, our second daughter, she's just had her third baby. And so she's at home with this newborn infant. Literally 3 weeks old. And she's with her almost 4-year-old, our grandson, her son. And she was just telling me how her son, her grandson, no, her son is a blessing to be around, even though, yes, he's active. He talks all the time. He's just but she was telling me what a blessing he was to be versus her 2-year-old who wasn't quite being the blessing because she wants to attack that baby. But just literally because she's done such a great job of listening and building confidence in her 3-year-old where, he's a blessing to be around. It can happen at any age, as we learn how to discipline towards what we talk about with discipline, Dr. Kim, is we say, hey, what if we move from parent control to self-control?
Right.
And even 3-year-olds, because 3-year-olds can have self-control at age appropriate ways. And so we talk a lot in our ministry just about how to make that happen.
That's so good. And it's nice to have a daughter that has put those things into place now in her family with her children. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, she's doing so much of a better job than standing on our shoulders. She is like 1,000 times better parent than we were. I put myself in the same spot that she was, and I was learning all this stuff, and she's applying all this stuff.
That's why we had to have 7 kids because it took so long for us to learn.
A new opportunity. Oh well, we might have messed that one up. Let's try another one.
I know.
Thank you, God, for giving us another opportunity.
So your last pillar is unity. How does that play out?
Well, so a couple of things. Our theme of that is we celebrate differences as we unite under common values. And so you think about it, in fact, we just did a podcast series. If people want to go in the Crazy Cool Family podcast series this summer, we interviewed all 7 of our kids. So throughout this one-on-one, we interviewed, 2-on-1 because we were 2-on-1 to them. But and we basically said, okay, as an adult, tell us how you were parented. And the theme of the podcast was how to get to know your kid, because we wanted everybody to see how different each one of our children are and how we got to know them and parented them all differently. And so go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I just think that's so important because I think so many people, especially you have the first child that's pretty easy and you feel like you've hit a home run and you know everything about parenting. And then you get that second or third child and you think, what's wrong with the child? But it's not. They just need to be parented in a little different way. And I think sometimes as parents, we can kind of get a little lazy and we thought, well, we'll put this template over all of our kids. And what you're saying, and I agree with, that doesn't really work.
Yeah, and it really comes down to, one of the theme of Crazy Cool Family is just relationship. And so how you get to know each child helps you to parent them better. How to, again, going back to being inspiring, how do you inspire that child instead of, you got to get to know them, and you got to get to know them differently. What's going to motivate child number 3 is going to be different than what's going to motivate child number 4.
Sure.
And from like a parent's perspective, just under like when I can look at each of my children is just like this package of all these different gifts that God's given them, whether they're introvert, extrovert, internal processor, external processor, all the different, they're a feeler, or they're a thinker, they're kinesthetic, they do, or they, see, just all the different things if I can see it. And they are. We have 7 children and they're all uniquely gifted. They're all have all the different aspects. And it's just been so fun to raise them because their aspects has sharpened me and directed me to love the Lord. Like, Lord, how do I love that in them? Or how do I accept that? Or how do I parent that? And I think, go back to the beginning. I think that we started learning that with each other in our own marriage.
We're so different.
So, the only thing I think we have in common is that we're both the baby of the family. So you bring that dynamic that you've got these spoiled brats that want our own way all the time.
Thank God we're both believers.
Yeah.
Because that
we
really
have that
helps.
in common too. Yeah. Other than that, we are just radically different. And we spent the first decade of our marriage. I wanted him to be like me. No, you think like me, see things like me, and the same for him. He wanted me to be.
Well, and I think that, I thought, I was memorizing scripture. I was in church. I was in my men's group, and I kept saying, I was kind of hoping that she would be more spiritual like me, kind of things.
And I wanted him to be more faith-filled like me, just believe. And he's like, no, read the word. And I'm like, but we just have faith. And he's like, no, memorize scripture. And
but as you get to know that God, think about it. One of the things we tell parents a lot is God created everyone unique, and he knew what he was doing.
He has a plan and a purpose. Not only knew what he was doing, but he's got to.
But we can still bring people into unity because we unite under loving Jesus. We unite under, even there's certain things in our family, like some people might say, hey, we're all Cowboy fans, or we play basketball, or there's things you can unite under that are, that might be common. We love this kind of food or this kind of whatever, but as you do that, you look at each person and what they're going to bring to the table. And then it just opens up. It makes parenting just fun, for one thing, but it also helps you to really get to the heart of your child.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Yes, I love the 4 pillars. So we've got parents listening today, and they are thinking, whatever, maybe we're doing it all wrong, or that sounds really good and want to do it. Give them a first step if they want to start beginning to put into practice some of the things that you guys believe in, and part of having a crazy cool family.
Well, the first thing I would say is, one is wherever you are is where you're beginning.
Yeah.
So
one step at a time.
That wherever and God redeems so many things. So whether, and realize that, I was reading a book this summer, and it talked about the curse of knowledge, how, we tend to be on we know these things, but we have to get back to where people are. And we didn't learn this in a year. We didn't learn this even we'll talk about decades of parenting, because we picked it up along the way. And so that's the way parenting is, I believe. I believe you have to learn things along the way, and God changes your strategy in your heart to where you can start to implement it. And real change takes time. So I hope that encourages parents, wherever you are, you can start here.
But and just to add to that, though, but with that, input is so valuable. Sometimes parenting can be lonely, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom. It's hard. Different seasons are hard, and so don't just try to pull up your belts, whatever, and just bootstraps, and do it yourself. Get some help. Go ahead and go after those resources. I think about is every time I want to take a step in our marriage, I look for resources, and that's how we found your resource. That's how I started getting your email and listening to your podcast and downloading your resources, because they're super encouraging in the marriage relationship. And so if there's a place
all of a sudden she became an amazing wife, Dr. Kim. I don't know how it happened. For 48 years she struggled. Now she's amazing. I don't know what happened.
Maybe Suzanne could be our poster child for awesome marriage.
No, but again, what we did with Crazy Cool Family, we spent years teaching, and then we wrote a book. But then we asked a lot of young parents what we could do to help them on that journey so they didn't feel overwhelmed. And so we designed Basecamp. And so you can go to basecamp.crazycoolfamily.com. Anybody can sign up in a minute. It's free, totally free. And what we did was we put in there some core courses. And those core courses are designed to be that guidebook and to really just, and again, parents, don't get overwhelmed. There's 10 courses in
Well,
there.
and don't be intimidated by the word course either, because it's literally just a video. It's just like this, with us just encouraging you and building you up and giving you some practical ideas.
I was writing some things this morning before the podcast, before this Facebook Live, and I just said, hey, what if you could sit across from us and spend 30 minutes a week and just be able to let us drip into you some things that are going to really help you shape the direction of your family? What if all you did was just 30 minutes a week, just one time? We sat down for coffee, and literally that's what the video series are like. They're just short videos that they can watch easily or listen to the audio, and we can drip into them things that will help them implement the things we've talked about today.
Absolutely. And we all have 30 minutes. Like we can take that one Netflix episode and see it tomorrow.
Or scrolling Instagram reels. Yeah, just go ahead and pick some content.
We all have time, and I think it's making that a priority. And what better thing to invest in than our children, our family, and our marriage. And
just like with your marriage stuff, what I would leave parents with is, who's the most important people in your life?
Absolutely.
Why would you not take? People say, how did you get to where you are today with your family? We studied family,
so many books and seminars, and that we did seminars. Now it literally comes to your, a device now, but we went to conferences, and
it's good. And over time we shifted things. For example, just as we finish, one of the things I talk about a lot is that there was a time when someone told us your children should be best friends for life.
Yes.
And we looked at each other, we heard at the same conference, and we looked at each other and said, that guy's crazy. There's no way we can make that happen.
I think they were all little and all fighting at that point.
And so, but we decided one of our values in our home would be our siblings. We would fight for our siblings our kids to be best friends. So you know what? Today, we started that implementation probably 25 years ago. Today, we have 7 kids that are best friends. Yeah. We decided on that value, and then we implemented, but we didn't know anything about that. That's what happens with Basecamp, and that's what happens with your marriage ministry, with Awesome Marriage. People see those concepts, and then they start to go, okay, let's agree on that, and let's put that in our family, and then you wind up getting amazing results. But if you never go back and study it, if we never went to that seminar, we never would have gotten that put into our brains and into our hearts.
Yeah. And we can all do it. We can all do it. We're all capable of being the husband, the wife, the parents that God designed us to be. It's just being intentional about it, and you provide a great avenue for people to do that. I've got one last question for you.
Yeah.
What are you guys loving about your marriage today with 6 out of the house and 1 in the house?
Well, we have more time, for one thing. It's been a blur, but what would you say? You get the first choice, though.
Okay, so I think that that we're starting to believe that each other is for each other, and I think that for the longest time, as I was raising kids, I think maybe I thought I was raising him too, and to see him as my counterpart, my best friend, my person to go to. And so I think for a long time, I didn't believe that he was for me. Not that he was necessarily against me. He just was doing his own thing. And I think that for us now, it feels like that, oh, you're for me. You believe in me. You want what's best for me. And I know that seems so simple, but I think for me, it was a reality of, and so then, and what does that look like practically? Calling, checking in. Okay, what does your day look like? Where can I, just encouraging back to that concept, just encouraging. I love it that you've done this.
That's
and I believe that for both of us, for different reasons, have not been very good at giving and receiving love.
Yeah.
So now, not just from each other, but it comes back to our backgrounds and everything, and even, and I think that right now what's happening is that we are learning to more and more about receiving and giving love from the Father.
Yeah.
And that's opening up some ways where we're, identity determines behavior. Who we are determines what we do. As we receive and deepen our love with God and build trust with each other, we really learn how to love each other and prioritize each other more than we ever have in our marriage. And so, and that's what I think that is really starting to, and I think that's really just making us like each other more.
Yeah.
I think we were in survival mode for so many years, taking care of all the little needs. And now we've looked up and we're like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
And I like you.
which is good in that. I mean, we've always, for every one of the things that even in that chaos, we always did things together. We built trust, but it's not like anything was ever bad. It was always good. Yeah. But now it's becoming great.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what I'm enjoying to see in this next stage of marriage. I believe, Dr. Kim, every stage of life gets better. And I think that we're seeing that, spiritually and emotionally and mentally, not necessarily physically. We're all material. We all know that. But yet, and I think we're seeing that in our marriage too.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, the book is Crazy Cool Family. See if I can get it on here where people.
It's available on Amazon, and there's a Kindle version as well. You can order it there.
And then where else can people, if they go ahead and give the information on Basecamp again, and any other ways they can follow you guys?
Yeah, basecamp.crazycoolfamily.com is the URL. It's easy, sign up there. We have our podcast. Go to any of your favorite podcast app or whatever and platform, and just look up Crazy Cool Family. We're also in social media. You can look for us on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, at Crazy Cool Family is Instagram, and then Facebook's Crazy Cool Family website.
crazycoolfamily.com website.
If you have a question for us, info@crazycoolfamily.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I thank for your time today. You guys are doing an amazing job. I think parenting is one of the most difficult things that we have to do, especially as we enter in the culture that we're in right now, and we all need help in it. And so you guys are doing a great job, and I can't wait to see the people that are listening today and watching today, that they latch on to you guys and see the changes that can come in their families.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us on. And
thank you.
We are doing the same with your ministry. We just think your awesome marriage is awesome.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we really, and just the years of you've spent investing in marriages is so fruitful. So, but thank you for your work as well.
And my favorite thing that you've done, I mean, not recently, but is include your wife. Yeah. I love her, when she gets on the email list and says something or something like that. So I appreciate that as well.
She has more time now, and so she's becoming more visible and more comfortable with it. So
and more comfortable. Believe me, girl, I get you.
You understand.
Yeah.
All right, guys, have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.